The meaning of life for everyone, I think, is just to keep this world going.
It's a journey, a road that you travel. It has its ups and downs and turns and twists, and you learn as you grow, and that's what life is.
I do think that there is a meaning in life. I don't know what it is, but I think if there isn't a meaning in life, then it's a big waste of it.
I don't think there's a meaning to life at all.
It can be something dark and scary and not have a light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes there isn't a light. Sometimes there's just nothing.
There's so much to be discovered that I really wonder if we could even reach, because I don't know if it would be worth it if we didn't have something to find out.
Okay, so what was the point then of putting us here on this earth for a limited amount of time? Like, why?
And sometimes you wonder, why can't you be born with knowledge right off the bat, instead of having to go through life and then getting it at the end of life, pretty much?
The meaning of life is whatever you create it to be. I don't think there's any inherent meaning to life. It's what people make it out to be.
It makes me wonder what is in the universe and what's it all about, and why are we here? Spring represents the beginning, and the buds on the trees pop out and the flowers start to bloom.
You never asked to be born into this world. We're just here no matter what.
I love the beginning of life. I think it's a beautiful thing, and I think so is death. Because I think a lot of people think that the beginning of life is beautiful and death is ugly, but I don't think that's true. I think there's duality in both.
It's like when you're born, you're innocent child, and as you grow, you learn and you become more mature and you see things differently.
The things about you that you maybe in the beginning of your life didn't like, you realize is what makes you you. I think that's really important.
I think that the beginning of life is an opportunity for a lot of people. Like when people have a kid, they're able to imprint things onto that kid that they were not able to achieve in their own lives and try to influence that kid to be able to do things that they could never do. And I don't know if that's a bad thing or a good thing. I think it's, both.
Things are fresh when you're young and anything's possible and the sun shines every day.
When we worked with kids, we would often talk about how, there was a beginning of life with a flower when it was a seed and then it would grow. But then it came to a point where the flower couldn't sustain itself any longer, and so it did wither and die.
You can very much look at a tree, a young tree, when it's planted, it's small. And you water that tree and it grows and grows, it gets bigger and bigger. And the years pass, and before you know it, that tree is huge.
One of the kids says to me, and he's like, the tree out there, he said, the leaves grow and wither and die, but the tree comes back every year and brings more life. And so then that, to me, I was like, yes, well, see, that's how life goes on. And the tree is like the vessel, and the leaves are the things that bloom and grow and then die.
In the summer, it's a wonderful free time, and I compare this with your aging, because in the spring you're like a child, and then in the summer you're more like a teenager.
I think in the beginning of life, everything's fresh and new. You feel like you can take on the world. You're so full of hope. And then sometimes things happen and you lose that.
A lot of stories suck. A lot of stories are good. A lot of stories are boring. A lot of stories are exciting. And I feel like we should all have our stories be what we want it to be.
You see the birds that, build nests on your porch and you watch them hatch, and then you see them learn to fly and stuff, and then they fly off. And that's exactly like how human life is.
I think that we should connect with nature more, because nature has a lot of lessons for us to learn. You have to find balance. That's one of the most important things. You have to find balance between yourself and the world around you.
When you're a teenager, when you turn 13, that's a wild time in your life, because you just go crazy in a way. You really do. But everything is so wonderful. It's just a good time. Then in the fall, you're a young adult growing into maturity and adulthood. As you grow older and you have to earn a living and work, you have to commit yourself to doing the right thing. I think it's most important, try to do the right thing. And sometimes that can be depressing.
Just from the very beginning when you're pregnant, trying to make sure that you eat the right things, you protect that baby that's in there. You just try to do everything right.
I was one of those people that I loved being pregnant. Today I created a lung and stuff like that. And it really makes you feel incredibly strong and powerful. Even though you thought you were invincible when you were pregnant, and then the child comes out and you realize that you have so many faults.
With my children, I gave them life, and that was a big accomplishment. And I watched them grow, and that was a very deep time in my life. There was happiness, and then there was pressure, there was stress because they were young babies. I was like a little bit scared and tense sometimes with my babies because I didn't know how hard it would be, how difficult to be a mother, and what a mother has to do.
You feel like you are invincible because you know what you're doing, and you kind of feel like holy. Like, I was chosen to do this, and I get to do this. And then you have the baby, and the smallest thing that the baby can do, maybe the baby's colicky and just won't sleep, and then you feel like the most useless, worthless human being. So I think that makes you feel good about yourself, but it also keeps you humble.
You worry, and sometimes you don't get everything right, but you're always trying to make sure that they have every chance and opportunity and are happy. You just want them to be happy whatever they end up doing in their life.
In the winter, you actually are at that age where you're pretty close to the end of your life. Death is not always friendly. Sometimes you can accept it, and then other times you can't, you question it. I think that's part of growing, is asking questions and wanting to know.
I don't know what is after death, but I know that there's something there, and I know that it has to be good, it can't be bad.
My feelings about death is that it's an inevitability. I don't think it's anything to be feared. It'll happen anyway. We can't achieve immortality at this point, so there's no point in fearing it at all like so many people do.
I feel like because it's inevitable, and now that I'm in my 50s, I feel like I have to do the things I want to do now, not waste time, see what I want to see, do what I want to do, don't sweat everything all the time.
And there is some sadness as you grow older, because you look back on your life and you think, oh, I wish I would have maybe done this better than I did then. I didn't know what I know now. I think that's the age-old secret.
If you're lucky enough to know that you're in it, I think that's your time to come to terms with what you really feel you did in life compared to what you think you should have done in life.
I feel like the act of dying is the actual end of life, because death itself is not an end. Death it's indescribable. It's not nothingness. It's the absence of everything, which is not nothingness. It is the utter absence of nothingness and everythingness.
Because you don't know where you're going. We all have a belief system. And so I hope that what I believe in is going to be what happens, but I don't really know for certain. So I think that's probably kind of scary at the same time too. Having watched my mother come in and out of consciousness for about a week, sometimes I could tell she realized what was happening, and sometimes I could kind of fool her, and I would tell her because I didn't want her to panic.
And I think everybody's sort of afraid of dying, and you think of death a lot. But knowing that all my loved ones are there now waiting for me makes it a little bit easier.
Death is something we all need to experience. It's just a part of every human's life. We're all going to die.
I don't understand when people are afraid of death, because it's something that you can't escape. Everyone shares one destiny, which is death.
Well, now that I'm in the twilight of my years, it's sort of sad, and I could look at it as the seasons. You know, you go through different parts, like the prime of your life when you're younger, but now I'm at the latter end of my life, and it can be both. It can be sad because I'll be leaving my children, my grandkids, and my life, but yet I look at it differently because I'll be going to the other side, and I will see all the loved ones I've lost. that is the seasons that we must all go through.